The Republican U.S. Senate primary gets nastier as new polls show Marco Rubio with a widening lead over Governor Charlie Crist. Has the deal for Florida to buy U.S. sugar land in the Everglades lost its sweetness? And how much is Florida going to gamble in its new budget year? All of that on Power Play this week with our guests, Gary Fineout of the Florida Tribune and John Frank of the St. Petersburg Times. Okay, it's getting dirty, nasty, and fists are flying in the Senate race, even as Marco Rubio appears to have a widening lead over Governor Crist. How big is the lead going to get? Is it real? And how nasty?
Well, is it real? I mean, I think it's real right now. I mean, I think that everything that we've seen is that I think that the Crist campaign did not take Rubio seriously enough until now it is proven to be, at this point in time, too late. I mean, we've seen Rubio run a fairly masterful campaign. Now, what we've got now is Crist people are coming out very, very much solidly on the tack. But as I have said from the get-go, we'll know it's really, really serious when the television ads start running.
Well, the television ads may start to run soon, but the governor went national on TV and took some shots at his opponent, didn't he?
He did. I wouldn't call it punches, though. Punches is talking about the $250 million in pork that Rubio requested as speaker. The backwaxing, that's a bitch slap. I mean, this is just, ridiculous proportions.
And this is the supposed expenditure on the Republican credit card that Rubio had of a haircut and some other hair being lofted off.
His gift certificates, his campaign clarified, but a little too late.
So does that hurt Rubio at all or not?
Well, Crist thinks it's a fine point on spending, but I think the backwaxing is a little sensational. So.
But in a partisan primary in the same party, this is kind of what Democrats have traditionally done, bloodied one another this far ahead of an election. What's it like on the Republican side?
Well, but that brings up an interesting point is that do you think that maybe other Democrats would have jumped in this race if they thought it was going to become this competitive between Crist and Rubio? I think the answer probably would have been yes. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think that the deal is that can Crist win those people back? And I think that's what we're wondering about because, I mean, Rubio in some ways, he might have already sort of sealed the deal here.
Might he not have peaked also? The governor's made a career in statewide politics of being underestimated by candidates in his own party and the Democrat Party, and the election's a long way off.
Well, that was the most interesting number in the Times Union poll, 10% undecided. It seems like people made up their minds one way or the other, so the fight for that last 10%, yeah, probably will get dicey.
Except lots of things can happen in politics to change. Let's go on to what was hailed a year ago as a way to save Florida's Everglades and our natural heritage for generations to come, the deal to buy U.S. sugar land in the Everglades. How sour or sweet is that deal now?
Well, that deal's going through, regardless. The board is pushing through with Governor Crist's idea. It's now muddied by politics, so it's sure to get drowned out a little bit, and certainly the luster is gone.
A New York Times piece comes out in the past week slamming the deal, though, and some Florida lawmakers have embraced that story as something to run with in criticizing the deal.
Right, but here's what they have not done, and we still have a long way to go in this session. So the question is that a couple times the legislature made noises about they would step in, that they would do what they could to change the law, to block it. I mean, I don't know what all their options are, but they still haven't kind of done that. So but now I think the issue is the economics. To me, the story brought up some good points, but it still comes down to the economics of the deal. Is this a sensible expenditure of funds? And in the end, that's what's going to make or break it.
Well, and in the end, isn't it not what it costs, but what it saves? It saves this precious gem for generations to come.
Right, but the point is if it's going to break the bank, then everyone is going to have a reason to back away from it.
All right, very quickly, we have casino interests from Vegas and Tallahassee making their case why Florida should expand the gaming industry here. Is that going to take root?
It's all about money, and they throw out some big numbers that I think the lawmakers are taking a real hard look at, and it's going to be hard for them to turn it down.
Hard to ignore a $1 billion dowry put on the table.
Right, but Baran, I know that you've been here a long time. I mean, the point is that I don't ever recall like casinos getting this kind of open reception. Please come tell us what you can do. So on the one hand, it shows how the times have changed in terms of the way gambling is perceived.
Anything but a tax, and we're going to go to your respective power plays of the week. John.
I'm picking Adam Hasner in the House GOP leadership. 3 times already this year, they're using procedural moves to force through their priority legislation. Most recently this week with Speaker Creedle's priority on the 911 bill banning the release of 911 calls. we'll see how many more times they have to do it to keep their house in order.
Gary?
Well, I'm going to take Senator J.D. Alexander. They pop a 400-page amendment the day before a meeting to blow up a state agency. They've made it abundantly clear in the Senate that they're really tired of some things that have gone on. Interestingly enough, underneath the Crist administration. But I mean, it's sort of like it's clear that the Senate and the Senate leadership are intent on doing some things.
And I'm going to go with Governor Charlie Crist, as John indicated, who's come out swinging in a hair-raising on the back punch against Marco Rubio. Gary Fineout, John Frank, thank you both very much. Hope your days are not so long. Go to the Safety Review for the latest political news, and we'll see you next time on Power Play.